Hey, what's up, y'all? This is a guy in a dorm room, and I'm back. So, recently, I made that video saying I needed to take a break for a little bit before I started publishing things because I was going through a lot. And I'm back with another movie review. This one's on Nightmare Alley. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. This one took a lot of time to make. I went in depth on it, and yeah, it took me about 8 hours to make combined. So I really hope you guys like it. I'm going to try to be more consistent with my movie reviews from now on. And yeah, also I'd also like to give a very big thank you to 200 subscribers. That really means so much to me. I love all of you. I love each and every one of you, and this family's growing. So with that being said, enjoy the video, and I'll be seeing you. Hey, what's up, y'all? This is a guy in a dorm room, and today I'm going to be reviewing Nightmare Alley, a crime thriller directed by Guillermo del Toro and starring Bradley Cooper, Cate Blanchett, Rooney Mara, Willem Dafoe, Ron Perlman, Toni Collette, and others. And let me tell you, was this movie thrilling? Wow. This film literally had me with bated breath throughout, and I really think that's a testament to just how talented Guillermo del Toro really is. He's one of the best directors currently in the industry, in my opinion, and it's an absolute crime that he doesn't get anywhere near the credit he deserves for his work. For this film in particular, I love the building of tension that occurs throughout. The movie's a little slow in the first act, but as soon as Cate Blanchett appears, the movie I felt like was very expertly written all the way up to the climax where things go very south, very fast. Speaking of writing, the dialogue in this film, especially in the scenes between Blanchett and Cooper, is excellent. This is definitely the best screenplay I've seen all year, which isn't saying much because I've only seen like 5 movies released in 2021. But still, the screenplay is excellent, and with the Academy Awards nearing, I wouldn't be too upset if Nightmare Alley was to be nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. This movie is very sexy. Whenever Cooper and Blanchett are on screen, their chemistry was amazing, and I could actually feel the seduction that was emanating from the screen. All of the performances in this movie are amazing, in fact. Let's talk about Willem Dafoe, who probably has less than 2 minutes of screen time in the entire film. Even in that limited screen time, Dafoe still managed to steal the show whenever he was on screen, in my opinion. I can always count on Willem Dafoe to pull off a great performance no matter the circumstances, and it was no different in Nightmare Alley. Ron Perlman, who is in every single one of Guillermo del Toro's movies, is also really good, and as is Rooney Mara. Overall, Nightmare Alley had an amazing star-studded cast, all of whom absolutely brought their A-games. Another thing I'd like to talk about is the story, which I felt was one of the most notable things about the movie. In Del Toro's films, he generally likes to gradually build up the story when he writes. Thus, the first act of his films are usually very slow, and are mainly utilized to do exactly what the first act is meant to do, which is set up the characters and events for which the story will be based on. Nightmare Alley is no different. The first act, which is about the first 20 minutes of the film, is very slow and sets up the events for which Bradley Cooper's character learns his tricks that he will use to con very rich and very powerful men later in the film. I'd say the first act of Nightmare Alley is definitely the weakest part of the film. As I said, it's very slow, and a lot of it sets up this romance between Cooper's character and Rooney Mara's character, which is never really developed in the rest of the film. The scenes between Cooper and Mara are nowhere near as interesting nor as engaging as the scenes between Cooper and Blanchett. Now, one could argue that this is because Cooper doesn't have anywhere near as much chemistry with Mara as he does with Blanchett, and I could very well see this being part of the problem. However, I think the real main cause in the difference between Cooper and Mara's scenes and Cooper and Blanchett's scenes is that Mara is simply not written into the movie as well as any of the other characters. This is a shame because I think Rooney Mara is actually a very good actress, and despite the poor writing in regards to her character, I thought she was pretty good in this as well. However, I can't really tell you anything about her character other than a very basic description of her role in the film. At this point in the review, I'm going to explain what makes a good character in a movie and what makes a poorly written character. To do this, I'm going to take 2 different movie characters, one being a well-written character, and the other being, yeah. First, let's look at a character that is so iconic, everybody knows him, and for this film, everybody still remembers him both for how well he was written and for the actor's remarkable portrayal of him. Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. This is not a Joker review, so I will not be expressing my thoughts on the film overall. However, I will be explaining why this Joker is an excellent and well-written character, and this Minion from the Minions movie is the exact opposite. Joker is a very iconic character, and of course, everybody already knew about him long before this film was even a thing. There are so many adaptations that there are tier lists everywhere ranking all of the different versions. There was Cesar Romero's Joker, Mark Hamill's Joker, Jack Nicholson's, Heath Ledger's, and many others, but each was uniquely different. Needless to say, creating a whole new Joker that could stand out on its own is a very daunting task. However, I think it's safe to say that the writers of Joker stepped up to the challenge very well, and they, like the numerous writers of the several Jokers that was created before him, were able to create an entirely new character that is unique. If I were to ask you to describe this Joker to me, you would probably say a plethora of different things. He's determined and persistent. He feels tormented both by his past and by his disability that causes him to feel alienated from the rest of the world. He's ultimately a failure, and he blames the world for it. You could go on and on. This is because Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is a well-written character that the writers clearly dedicated time and effort to develop. Now let's look at this Minion from the Minions movie. If I were to ask you to describe him, what would you say? Exactly. You can't describe this Minion in any other way than just providing a very basic description of his role in the film. This is both because his design makes him look like the 500 other Minions that are also in the movie, and also he's just not written well. This is why a character like any of the Minions are considered bad characters, and a character like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker are considered very well written and well developed ones. So how does this all tie back to Nightmare Alley and Rooney Mara's character being bad, especially when compared to Cate Blanchett's character? Well, let's do what I just did to compare Joaquin Phoenix's Joker to the Minions and do the exact same thing here with Rooney Mara and Cate Blanchett. If you were to ask me to describe Cate Blanchett's character in Nightmare Alley, I would probably say that she's a very clever woman. She knows what most men want, and she knows that men generally find her attractive, so she uses that attractiveness to her advantage. She's also very cold and calculating. She actually serves as a great foil to Bradley Cooper's character. Both characters were wronged by people from their past, and that ultimately turned them into the people they are today. However, while Cooper blindly gets revenge and gets a god complex in which he believes that he can and must do what he needs to in order to make other people's lives better in his eyes, Cate Blanchett actually learned from her experiences in this film. She knows that people are generally awful in the world, and thus, in order to survive, she must be just as awful and manipulative to people like Cooper. At the end of the film, these two characters, although their lives started out very similarly, end up in different places. Cooper sees his life finally catch up to and burn him. His wife leaves him, he's found out as a con artist, he's wanted for a variety of very high crimes, including murder, and he ends up becoming a tortured circus act where he's literally treated like a wild animal. Meanwhile, Blanchett, who once again actually learned from her experiences, is much better off at the end of the film. She gets away with all her crimes and ends up being able to keep her reputation as a high-status psychologist. It's interesting to see the scenes between Blanchett and Cooper play out until they both end up ultimately in their respective end places. They have depth, and both the wonderful performances and the brilliant writing for these two characters make their scenes the best in the entire film, in my opinion. On the other hand, Rooney Mara's scenes typically only have the wonderful acting aspect from Mara, but none of that wonderful writing that is in Blanchett and Cooper's scenes. I think it really stands as a testament to Rooney Mara's acting ability, because she herself is absolutely wonderful in this film. It's just that her character is just bad. Honestly. There was a time or two where the film would transition from a particularly great Cooper Blanchett scene into a Mara Cooper scene, and I would physically groan because of the dramatic drop in quality of the writing. At the same time, another issue that causes Mara's character to be as severely underwhelming as she is that she's really not in the film as much as she should be. Her lack of screen time in the first act really left me wondering why Cooper's character even chose her to be his love interest in the first place. I know I keep going on and on about this issue, but other than the poor writing regarding Mara's character, and in the first act overall, I really have nothing but praise for Nightmare Alley. I felt like it was a character study, and a very intriguing one at that. Despite the poorly written first act, I thought that the rest of the film, especially the scenes between Cooper and Blanchett and the third act, were actually written quite masterfully. Guillermo del Toro does a really great job at building up suspense throughout the second and third acts, so we as an audience know that things will probably go wrong for Cooper, but we're not really sure when they will start to go wrong. There's one warning when one of the people Cooper helps suddenly and abruptly kills herself and her husband, but then after that, the movie proceeds on like normal for the next 10 or so minutes. Everything after that then starts to fall apart very suddenly, And in about 30 seconds, the film goes from being a very suspenseful thriller ride to being this very dark, gory horror movie. I absolutely love the way the film does this. Del Toro did exactly what he wanted to. He shocked me and had me holding my breath until the very end. And in the end, seeing Blanchett be fine and Cooper finally get his comeuppance despite both being horrible people was very satisfying to me. I love this film and I can't recommend it enough. With that being said, I'm giving Nightmare Alley an 8.5 out of 10, an A-. I hope you all enjoyed the review, and I will be back next week with another one. And with that, I'll see ya.